All right, so let's start. We don't say Tachnun during the whole month of Nisan. So why is that? The Mishkan was set up and became operational on Aleph Nisan. And then for 12 days, the Nesiim brought Korbanos. So for the first 12 days of Nisan, at the time of the Mishkan, when it was set up, was really, each day was a mini Yom Tov. So, no Tachnun there. Erev Pesach is a mini Yom Tov. So no Tachnun there. So, and then you have 7 days of Pesach. So already you're up to 20. So once the Chazal decided that once there's no Tachnun for 20 days, majority of the month, so the whole month should not be a no Tachnun. It becomes kind of, the whole month becomes a mini Yom Tov. Shabbos Hagadol, why is it called Shabbos Hagadol? So the main answer is that our tradition is that the 15th of Nisan by Yetzias Mitzrayim was on a Thursday. So therefore that year, the 10th was a Shabbos. Now on the 10th, they were supposed to take a sheep and put it aside and watch it and offer it 4 days later on the 14th as the Korban Pesach. But there's a problem there. And the problem is because the sheep was an Egyptian god. The Egyptians worshiped the sheep. So it was a little touchy taking a sheep. And the Egyptian neighbor would say, so what are you doing with that sheep? Well, I'm not sure. Tell me, what are you going to, well, I'm going to shecht it in 4 days. You're going to do what? So it was a big miracle that nothing happened, right? A pogrom should have started, but nothing happened. So Nes Gadol Hayasham. So therefore, and that was a Shabbos, so the Shabbos for Pesach is always called the Shabbos Hagadol to remember the Nes Hagadol that occurred in the first Pesach. The other reason that's given is the Haftarah for the Shabbos before Pesach is from Malachi, and you have the pasuk there that says, "Hinei anochi shaleach lachem." I'm not going to sing it. Don't worry. Hinei anochi shaleach lachem et Eliyahu Hanavi lifnei bo yom Hashem hagadol v'hanorah. So we read Haftarah there. So it's Shabbos Hagadol, reflecting the Haftarah, the pasuk in Malachi. There's a cute answer that's given. I saw this in a book. I don't know if it's said like tongue in cheek, but because that Shabbos, the Rav of the community, who's considered the Gadol of the community, gives a drasha. Shabbos Hagadol drasha. The Shabbos, the drasha of the Gadol. So that's cute. Okay, Bedikas Chametz. Interesting halachic issue is that the blessing is al bir chametz and not al bedikas chametz. Usually, the bracha of the birkas mitzvah very closely reflects the action of the mitzvah. But here we say al bir chametz. But why isn't it al bedikas chametz? So the answer is that the bedika is simply a means. That is really not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to eliminate chametz from your house. That's what biur chametz means, to eliminate. And that's a whole process. You have to check for chametz, and then that's what we do. So the night before, right, Leil Yudalid, we check. That's the bedika. Then at the end, we verbally mevatel, we nullify it, we're mafkir it, right? So even if you left something, it ain't mine, so that's not a problem. And then the next day we burn whatever's left over. So it's a 3-step process. We do bedika, bitul and hafkara, and then sreifa. So the whole process is biur. The bedika is just a beginning and it's a means. So the bracha reflects the end, not the means, the actual goal of the act. And that is to eliminate. So the bracha is al bir. It's a correct bracha.
There's such a hesed between the bracha and the action.
Right. That's absolutely right. Yep. So this is it's a long drawn out, right? So it's a very good point. But yeah, that's the nature of this bracha. of this action. It's a 2-day process, right? Tanis Bechorim. It commemorates the miracle that the Jewish Bechorim didn't die, right? Only the Egyptian Bechorim died. So it's a happy day. We didn't die. That's good. So why do we fast? Right? Usually we fast because we commemorate a sad event. Here we commemorate a very happy event. So why do we fast? What? Excellent. That's the answer, right? In 2 words, Tanis Esther. What do we mean? What's the answer? What does that mean? It means we're not fasting for a sad event. We're fasting because they fasted. It's the same thing. In that time, that's the kind of the wisdom behind Tanis Bechorim, is that day of Makas Bechoros, the Jewish Bechorim fasted, just like we fasted on Yud Gimel Adar way back then, because the Haman's decree of a national pogrom was for Yud Gimel Adar. So the men fasted and then went to war, and we won. So we fast because they fasted. So we fast because the Bechorim fasted on Makas Bechoros. By the way, if you're a Bechor and you go to a Siyum, you don't necessarily have to partake in the Siyum meal. The exemption is primarily from participating in the Siyum, listening to the Siyum. Meaning, if you go outside to the social hall and you start eating your bagel, but you don't hear the Siyum, that's a problem, right? I mean, ideally you would do both, but ideally you should listen to the person making the Siyum and participate in the simcha of the Siyum, and that exempts you from Tanis Bechorim. Number 5, Hallel is the night of the 15th. We say it both in Shul and at the Seder. So that's very unique because this is the only time we ever say Hallel at night. So I understand the Hallel at the Seder, right? It commemorates the Hallel that we recited at the time of eating the Korban Pesach. Okay? Now, we split up the Hallel. We do, Hallel is 6 chapters of Tehillim. We say the first 2 chapters before the meal, because that tells the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So that's part of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. The last 4 chapters, which have nothing to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim, those are about future redemptions. So that's after the meal. But what's with the Hallel and Shul? So there are a couple of reasons why we say Hallel and Shul. Really 3 reasons. One is to fulfill the obligation for those who won't say it at the Seder. Maybe you'll forget, right? You could see that. You've had now 3 cups of wine, right? Late at night. You've eaten a lot of the meal. You may forget to say the second part. You may just fall asleep. Also, remember, before we had a printing press, a lot of this was said by heart. So a person may just forget to skip the Hallel part. So we say it in the shul to make sure everybody gets in a Hallel. 2, to commemorate the Hallel recited at the time of slaughtering the Korban Pesach. In the afternoon, in the 14th, when they actually slaughtered the Korban Pesach, they said Hallel in the Mikdash during the time of the slaughtering. And 3, which is the main reason, main halachic reason, is whenever we have a mitzvah Pesumei Nisa, we will also do it in public. Meaning the 3 mitzvahs of Pesumei Nisa, right? Ner Chanukah, Arba Kosos, and Mikra Megillah. So you ever wonder, why do we light candles in shul? Nobody's yotze with that. Even the guy who lights the candles and says a bracha is not yotze with that. He has to go home and light in his home because it's near Ish Ubeso, right? So what are we doing in the shul? Because it's a Pesumei Nisa. Pesumei Nisa, it's very logical. It's much more effective to do it in public. Right? The fact that I light my house, I put it by the window, but I don't have to. I could light in the kitchen. So that's a Pesumei Nisa internally for me and my family. But Pesumei Nisa on a community level is much better done in shul. So Mikra Megillah also. I could be Yosei Mikra Megillah I have a cloth. I can read it at home. But that's not really Pesumei Nisa. Pesumei Nisa is better done in a big minyan in the shul. So Arba Kosos. I could do it privately at home. But what we want to do is publicize the miracle of Yetzias Mitzrayim by doing a community-wide Hallel. So you'll say, wait a minute, but that's the Hallel in the morning. The Hallel in the morning is for the Yom Tov. Every time we have a Yom Tov, that's a Shalosh Regalim. We'll get to that. We'll get back to that in a few minutes. But every Yom Tov, every one of the biblical holidays gets a Hallel because it's a Yom Tov. The Hallel at night, the night of the 15th, is to fulfill the mitzvah of Pesumei Nisa, plus the other two reasons. Just understand that the Kiddush said at the Seder is a very unique Kiddush. So, for many reasons. One is, many people, you don't have to do this, but many people have the minhag to actually recite the Kiddush. So let's suppose Friday night or on Erev Shavuos or Erev Sukkos, right? So you're Yotzei with whoever is the host. One person says Kiddush, and you're Yotzei with him. That's okay. The same thing could happen at the Seder, right? The host says the Kiddush, and everybody's Yotzei with that Kiddush. That's okay. But I know there are many people, many families who have the minhag that everybody recites the Kiddush. Okay? So that's unique too. The Kiddush is not only a Kiddush, thank you, but it's the beginning and part of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. And for that reason, really, the Kiddush cannot be said before Tzeis HaKochavim. The Kiddush has to be said after Tzeis HaKochavim because you can only do it when the mitzvah of matzah and maror apply, and that's only after Tzeis HaKochavim because the pasuk in the Torah says balayla. Okay, so the Kiddush you can't say the Kiddush early like I can do, let's say Friday night. Here you have to wait till because it's the beginning and part of the mitzvah of Tzipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's also the first of the Arba Kosos, so therefore everybody has to drink, right? So this you have no option. I can't be Yotzei with your drinking. I can be Yotzei with your recital of Kiddush, but I can't be Yotzei. So Friday night and Erev Shavuos and Erev Sukkos, I don't have to drink the wine, right? I can be Yotzei with your Kiddush. I have no obligation to drink, but it's nice if you do, and many people do, but you don't have to, right? The kosher bracha has to be drunk by somebody, either the Mavarech or somebody else. But thank you. But on the Seder Kiddush, everybody has to drink because it's the first of Arba Kosos, and everybody has to drink Arba Kosos. It's also I didn't put it down, but it's also unique because you have to drink this wine or grape juice with leaning, behaseba. So that's unique. And also, you could make the Kiddush on matzah. So you're thinking, of course you can't make it on matzah. You have to make it on wine. Friday night you can make it on challah. If you forget. This was not uncommon in the shtetl, where not everybody had wine or grape juice because of the poverty. Now we're all very, very rich. But so far, you can make Kiddush on challah, but you cannot at the Seder make Kiddush on matzah. So that's unique. So for any reason, that Kiddush is unique. I know that after 6 comes 7. I'm sorry for the mess up, but we're going to move on to 8. I was never very strong in math. Why 3 matzos? So the basic halachic answer, you need 3 matzos because you want to fulfill Lechem Mishnah. And since we're going to do at the beginning of the Seder Yachatz, so if I only had 2 matzos, right, like I have 2 challahs all the time, if I have 2 matzos and you do Yachatz, now I only have 1.5. One is put away for the Afikoman, so now I only have 1.5. So when I get to the Birkas HaMotzi, I'm going to make the Birkas HaMotzi on 1.5. What happened to Lechem Mishnah? So we start with 3 matzos. So when you do Yachatz, now you have 2.5. So the Birkas HaMotzi still has 2 matzos. So you fulfill Lechem Mishnah. But you should just know the Grad did only 2 matzos. Why do you only do 2 matzos? Because he said, what happened to Lechem Mishnah? The Grad also held by Lechem Mishnah. He was a frum guy. But he held that Lechem Oni pushes aside the need for 2 complete. That you can fulfill Lechem Mishnah with 1.5. Because of Lechem Oni. Some say because these are more hashkafic, the three avos, right? Kohen Levi Israel. Some say, I saw a midrash that, not a midrash, just also kind of hashkafic, that it commemorates the three se'ah that Sarah baked for the angels. There it says that three se'ah, and our tradition is that occurred on Pesach. The angels came to Avraham on Pesach. Halach ma'anya in Aramaic, because although the basic form of the Haggadah, the main body of the Haggadah, was composed by the Anshe Stakes Agdola, which is hundreds of years before. There's the beginning of Bai Sheni, but there were later additions. And this Halach Ma'anya was composed during Galus Bavel. So they wanted people to understand it. You're inviting someone. It's kind of foolish to invite someone in a language they don't understand, right? So they did it in Aramaic. I'll tell you something interesting about this. I read an interesting story of Yisrael Meir Lau, who was the former chief, not the father of David Lau. So he was once hosting a Seder for soldiers. Many of the soldiers were not dati. And so they, in the Halach Ma'anya, you say, right, what is Hashta Hacha? Now we're here. The Shana Haba B'Arad Yisrael. Next year we'll be in Israel. So one of the soldiers kind of challenged him. Said, what kind of ridiculous statement is this? I'm in Israel now. What do you mean now, right? Right now I'm here, but meaning not in Israel. Next year I'll be, I hope to be in Israel. Because I'm in Israel now. Why are we saying that? Right? Sometimes sometimes you could say like a foolish question can be the most difficult to answer. So Yisrael Meir Lau said to him, it's a good point, but we have kind of one text for the Haggadah. He said similarly, when we say vidui, like on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we'll say, on Yom Kippur, not Rosh Hashanah, but we'll say, or on a fast day, right? So we'll say al chait. Just imagine all the chaits. So when Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Shlomo Zalman said al chait, ashamnu, bagadnu, gazalnu, he did all those things? Or think of the al chait. I stole, I said Lashon Hara, I did this. Yeah, Rav Shlomo Zalman really did it. So why is he saying that? He just meaningless words? No. It's a uniform text. When he says it, Rav Shlomo Zalman says al chait, he's saying it as a form of a prayer for all the Jews that it does apply to. So Yisrael Meir Lau said, when you say it, you live in Israel now. So this statement, in fact, really doesn't apply to you because you're not hoping you'll be in Israel next year. I mean, in a way, you are hoping that you'll still be in Israel next year, but you're in Israel now. You're saying it as part of a nation, and you're saying it on behalf of the millions of Jews who don't merit to live in Israel like you do. Right? Similarly, we say, Hashta Avdei, now we're slaves. The Shana Haba B'nei Chorin. We hope next year we'll be free. I don't think I'm a slave. I'm free to go wherever I want to. So what does that mean, Hashta Avdei? So you can say, okay, that was the text way back then, and we keep it because we hold tradition, right? He said, no, there's a much stronger answer for that. What do you mean, Hashta Avdei? Now I'm free. Because now I'm a slave, next year I'll be free. I think I'm free now. Is because many of us are slaves to fill in the blank. The phone, a job, distractions, addictions. Okay? Next year I hope to be free, meaning I hope I'm making a commitment now at the Seder that this year I'm going to work. I'm not going to spend 4 hours on the phone. I'm not going to spend 4 hours on TV. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to cut out smoking. Meaning, slaves means very different things. Number 10. There's no blessing on the biblical mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. So usually when we do a mitzvah, this is a biblical mitzvah. Usually we do a mitzvah, whether it's biblical or rabbinic. We make brachos on rabbinic mitzvahs also, right? On Netilas Yadayim and on Neros Chanukah and on Mikvah Megillah. But when we do a mitzvah, we usually say a bracha in the mitzvah. It enhances the mitzvah. So why is there no bracha? So the basic halachic answer is that we don't have a bracha when the mitzvah itself is done through brachos. For instance, I'm about to bench. So I don't say levarech al hamazon. Why? Because the mitzvah of birkas hamazon is in the form of blessings, right? The 3 biblical and 1 rabbinic mitzvah, and 1 rabbinic bracha. When the bracha itself, when the recital of the bracha itself is structured on brachos, so there's no bracha on that. You might have been tempted to say, wait a minute, it's not such a good question, because birkas mitzvah is on an action mitzvah, but not on a recitation mitzvah. But that's not true. We say a bracha on Mikvah Megillah. There's no action. I'm just reading it. We say bracha and we say Hallel. There's no action there, and yet we say a bracha on the recitation, right? Likros Hallel. So on recitation itself, we do it, but the Megillah doesn't have any brachos in the text of the Megillah. Hallel doesn't have any brachos, just 6 chapters of Tehillim. So when the recitation is just a recitation without brachos, we say a bracha. But when the recitation is brachos itself, the body of the recitation is structured on brachos, as the Haggadah is. Right? All 4 kosos are structured on brachos, right? And the Kiddush, Asher Galanu, right? And later is you have a Birkas Hamazon, right? Birkas Shiur. So we have brachos. So there's no bracha. There's a hashkafic one, which is a beautiful one by the Rav. The Rav said, the mitzvah Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is what he called a kiyum balev. It's a feeling. It's an experience. Right? Just recite the Sipur Yetzias, you just read it. 5 minutes, that's it. No. You've got to really internalize it and feel it and experience it. And on mitzvahs of kiyum balev, we don't have a bracha. And the example the Rav gives is, there's a biblical mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov. I'm supposed to be happy on Yom Tov. There's no bracha on that. We don't say tzivanu lismoach b'Yom Tov, because that's a mitzvah that is an internal feeling, happiness, right?
Based on the Rav's answer, we actually mention it seems to try multiple times a day, every single day.
Right.
I don't expect the same thing to see, please, to try to mention it, and over there it is encompassed within brachos.
So we have the bracha, right? We fulfill, right, for the Shema, you're saying, we do for the Shema. So those are birkos on Kriyas Shema. It's hard to say that those are brachos for the mitzvah of Zichiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we have a mitzvah of Zichiras Yetzias Mitzrayim, morning and evening, that we fulfill with the 3rd paragraph of Shema. You don't have to say the Shema to do it. I can just wake up in the morning and say, Hashem, thank you for taking us out of Egypt. Bingo, I just did a biblical mitzvah of Zichiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. We do it with the 3rd part, right? That's really why we have the 3rd paragraph of Shema. So I'll tell you something else that's interesting. By the way, there's an opinion out there that we do have a bracha on Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's what we say, Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu. Before we darshan the psukim of Arami Oved Avi, we say the Birkas HaTorah. So the real reason why that's Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, we have it, not just for the song, but this is going to be a darshaning of psukim, a form of Talmud Torah. So we say a form of Birkas HaTorah. Some want to say that that's the bracha, Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. I'll tell you something else that's interesting when we deal with brachos. Why is there's no shechianu on the mitzvah of matzah? Usually annual mitzvos, you say shechianu, right? It's only one time of the year that there's a mitzvah. I mean, you can eat matzah the whole year, but there's only a time, only a mitzvah to eat matzah on the Leil Seder. So why isn't there no shechianu? And even on Moror, why is there no shechianu on Moror? Right? So that's a good question. So two approaches to that. One is, we do have shechianu. Excellent. The shechianu and kiddush, right? So it's almost like at the Purim, right? The rabbi always will announce, when we say the shechianu, Mikra Megillah, have in mind the other three mitzvos of the of Purim. So here too, when you do the shechianu, so the shechianu goes on the Yom Tov, right? At the beginning of Yom Tov, we always say shechianu. So that shechianu also goes on the mitzvos of the night, on Matzah Morah. That's one. The other one, which I think is a sharper answer, is we do have the shechianu, and that is in the bracha of Asher Ga'alanu, which is the bracha you say right before you drink the second cup, like at the end of the first part, my pre-meal. So we have there, right? We say Vehigianu halayla hazeh. In that bracha, you'll take, well, you have the agada, right? Higianu kind of rings, right? Shechianu v'kimanu vehigianu. The vehigianu is like a shortened shechianu, so that we do have the shechianu right before we have the matzah and the morah. 11. Who authored the agada? So we talked about the Anshe Knesset Agdola and later additions. Meaning the Anshe Knesset Agdola, when they put together the Haggadah that we have, they didn't know about Rav Gamliel Hazaken, who was going to be 400 years later. They didn't know about the story of Bnei Brak. So those were later additions to the Haggadah. Afikoman, that matzah that we eat at the end of the meal, commemorates the eating of the Korban Pesach. See, we had two korbanos on the 14th. On the afternoon of the 14th was a Korban Pesach and a Korban Chagiga that we slaughtered, and we ate that. The Korban Chagiga, halacha within the Korban Pesach, is that you're not supposed to eat it when you're hungry. You should only eat it when you're somewhat full. So the meal was a Korban Chagiga. You ate the meat of the Korban Chagiga for the meal, right? And you left a little bit over, but you were somewhat full, right? You could have pushed away. And then you have the meat of the Korban Pesach. So that matzah that we as Korban Pesach, we had a meal, right? You had the matzah of the motzi and achilas matzah, and you had some chicken and potato kugel. And then at the end, we eat the matzah for the afikoman. So that represents the Korban Pesach that was eaten at the end after the Korban Chagiga. Now the word afikoman is a Greek word. Afiku means to bring out. And then man refers to sweets. So this is interesting. We have that word, it appears, and the last Mishnah in Maseches Pesachim is Ein Maftirin, Achar HaPesach Afikoman. So there it's used that you're not allowed to eat dessert after the Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach is to be the last thing in your mouth. So in the Mishnah, Afikoman is used as a word for what we're not supposed to do. Ein Maftirin Achar HaPesach Afikoman. You're not allowed to do the afikoman. You're not allowed to have dessert, right? After Korban Pesach. We use the word afikoman for what we should do. You're supposed to have the afikoman because the afikoman stands for the Korban Pesach. Poshel Eliyahu. So there's a whole issue of whether you need we know about the Arba Kosos because of the 4 Lashonos in of the Geula, right? Votzesi, Vehitzalti, V'ga'alti, V'lakachti. But in the next pasuk it says V'hevesi, referring to the. I'm gonna then subsequently bring you to Eretz Yisrael. So there's a whole question whether you should have a 5th cup, which we don't, for the V'hevesi, and even to drink a 5th cup. And then the question is, and what does this have to do with Eliyahu? Okay, so I understand there's a question, a halachic question of the 5th cup, but so why? What does Eliyahu have to do with this? So 2 basic answers. One is that This fifth cup is our faith in the future redemption, which will be heralded by Eliyahu. Right? That was the pasuk in Malachi, right? That we had, right? Hinei anochi sholach lachem. I'm sending you, Eliyahu Navi, lifnei bo yom Hashem hagadol v'hanora. That'll be in the future for the time of Mashiach. Eliyahu will herald the coming of Mashiach. A more down-to-earth and halachic answer is what the relationship with Eliyahu with the fifth cup is in the discussion of should we have a fifth coast. And it's a good havamina we have because of the lashon of Avesi. And if you have a fifth coast, should you drink it? Right? So the Gemara says teku. Teku is the Gemara's language of unresolved. Okay? We have to live with questions. Not all questions are answered. But our tradition is that teku is an acrostic for Tishbi. Tishbi refers to Eliyahu at Tishbi. Yataretz will answer Tushos ve'iboyos. He will answer all questions. That's teku. So that's Eliyahu's relationship to this fifth coast. Now there are many minhagim, so we don't drink a fifth coast. But there are many minhagim what to do. Our minhag is to have a fifth coast on the table, representing that, right? There's one minhag is to drink it during the meal. You can drink between the second and the third cup, so drink it during the meal. There's another minhag that says that you pour from it into the fourth coast. After benching is on the third coast. And afterwards, you're going to say the Hallel and all the songs and all those piyutim. So you pour from the Kos Eliyahu into your fourth coast. That becomes fourth coast. Some say, no, leave it on the table and use it for Kiddush next day at lunch. That's kind of a nice minhag, right? And some say, no, just pour it back into the bottle, right? 14. Opening the door at Shvo Chamascha, right? So after the Birkas Hamazon, we drink the third kos, and then before we start the second part of the Hallel, we have this paragraph called Shvo Chamascha, meaning it's a plea to Hashem. Please pour out your wrath on the non-Jews who hate us and who make our lives miserable. And then there's a minhag to go open the door at that point. You don't have to. It's not that, but almost all the Haggadahs have in the small English, go open the door. What's with the opening the door? So one is, there are two basic reasons. One is it's because this is called Leil Shiburim. It's a night of protection or safety. We show we're not afraid. So we go open the door to show we're not afraid. And because of this emunah in Hashem's protection, we hope to make the Mashiach come sooner. Two, it's a yearning for Eliyahu and redemption. Remember, Eliyahu is a sign of the coming of Mashiach. So if you rush to the door and open the door and you say Baruch haba, so that shows that you're really passionate about it. You have a real yearning for this. There are different minhagim about it. The Rav Shlomo Zalman would say Baruch haba, but he didn't stand. Rav Elyashiv said Baruch haba, and he stood. So there's different minhagim to how you deal with this. There is an interesting halachic answer for why we open the door. This is interesting. It's a throwback to what they used to do, meaning there is an Isser to eat the Korban Pesach in two different places, certainly two different houses, question even in two rooms, right? So in yesteryear, in fact, the Ramah says that you shouldn't eat the matzah nowadays. You shouldn't even eat the matzah in two places. Zechel Korban Pesach, that was not eaten in two places. So they used to keep the door closed to make sure nobody would leave. As a sign, stay in your place, don't leave. Because an open door is a suggestion that you can leave. The Gemara describes that after Birkas Hamazon, so now you're getting into the second part of the Hallel, people would go up to the roof. So you can just imagine their houses were not like our, mansions, very small, and a lot of people. It would kind of get stuffy. They would finish Haggadah, and then after the meal, you finish the Korban Pesach, or you finish the Afikoman. So now go up to the roof. Springtime, right? It's nice, open air. That's the signal of opening the door. The opening the door nowadays is a sign you finished. You finished eating all the matzahs. You ate the motzi matzah, the matzah, you ate the fikon matzah. Now, right, it's like on a plane. Now you can move about, right? Now you can go up, go outside. So we open the door. That's an interesting, that we split up the Hallel pre-meal. We talked about this. And we do the first two chapters, which have about Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then post-meal, the last 4 chapters, we do other, which deal with future redemptions. The meal in the middle becomes a Sudas Hoda'ah. That's nice, because the splitting of the meal, so why are we splitting up the Hallel? Because, and then we have a meal right in the middle. So the meal, because of Hallel before and after, it's a meal of Hallel. So it's not just a regular meal. It's really a very, very beautiful thought. I'll tell you an interesting insight about Hallel. Well, what time is it? I forgot my watch. Almost 10 after, so we really need to finish. All right, we'll skip this insight. What? Don't skip? Okay, I'll just tell you an interesting insight. Okay, because I see we have other things. Okay, I'll try to really hurry up here. Is that, you know, the Gemara in Megillah asks why there's no Hallel in Purim. So it gives 3 answers. Okay, it was outside of Eretz Yisrael, and the Megillah is instead of Hallel. But one answer is, oh, you can't say Hallel because there was still avadim to Achashverosh, right? So how could you start the Hallel by saying Halu Avdei Hashem? They weren't Avdei Hashem. They were. That never kind of sat well with me. I mean, you can be subject to a king, but you consider yourself a subject to. Okay, but that's the answer to the Gemara. So why was that only a restricted Purim? Right? I used to think about this. So they shouldn't have been able to say Hallel. I mean, in those times, in Achashverosh's time, they shouldn't have been able to say Hallel in the Shalosh Regalim. Same Hallel. So they were still subject to Achashverosh. How did they say Hallelu Avdei Hashem on Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot? Right? The implication of the Gemara's question is, on Purim you can't say Hallel, but in the Shalosh Regalim they said Hallel. What's the difference? The insight is the 2 types of Hallel. The Gemara in Erchem, when it discusses Hallel, says there are 2 things that drive a Hallel, or that prompt a Hallel. One is a nace. A nace happened, so we say Hallel for it. So we commemorate the nace by saying Hallel. That's Hanukkah and Purim. Okay, so Hanukkah we say Hallel. So Purim, there should have been a Hallel. Why no? Now Hallel. Okay, so you can say that, meaning the nace was incomplete. The nace was we were saved from physical harm, but the nace was incomplete because we were still avadim to Achashverosh. Okay. The other thing that prompts a Hallel is Yom Tov, Shalosh Regalim. There's a Yom Tov independent of any miracle. You have a Yom Tov, you have to say Hallel. That has nothing to do whether you're subject to Achashverosh or anybody else. Okay, it's Pesach, say Hallel. Shavuos, Sukkot, you say Hallel. So therefore, it would not prevent you from saying Hallel because you're still Avdei Achashverosh. Why only half a Hallel on Chol HaMoed in the last days? So the answer why there's no Hallel on the 7th day is because the Egyptians drowned. First, I never liked this answer. I'm very happy that the Egyptians drowned. I'm still happy to this day, and I will sing and dance when my enemy, people who want to kill me, die. I'm very happy. The Egyptians drowned. So there's no Shira. What do you mean there's no Shira? What happened to Az Yashir? Right? They're standing on the beach. They see all the Egyptians drown, right? So they said Shira. How are they allowed to say Shira? Because they were saved, right? If your enemy comes to attack you and then lightning strikes him, you can jump and dance and sing all you want, right? But me, I'm not saved. I wasn't saved at that. The next year, after that, Hashem said, no, don't say Hallel. Don't say Shira because my children drowned. You weren't saved yourself. In commemoration, don't sing. So we don't say Hallel on the 7th day and the 8th day. What about Chol HaMoed? So two answers are given why there's only a half a Hallel. Because we only say Hallel, full Hallel in the first 2 days, and then the last 5 days, for us, for the last 6 days, we say Chatzi Hallel, which is not a real Hallel. That's just a minhag. The real Hallel is the Hallel Shalom. So one is, it would be disrespectful to the 7th day if you said full Hallel on Chol HaMoed, but there's only a half a Hallel on the 7th day. So that's like a technical reason. The other reason, which is the main halachic answer, is what kind of allows you to say a full Hallel is when the day is unique vis-a-vis korbanos. Different type of korban, different number of korbanos, that's sukkah. So sukkah, there's a Hallel Shalom all 7 days, because every day had different numbers, 13 bulls, 12 bulls, like that. On Pesach, the same korban that was offered on the first day, when we're talking about the Musaf, the same Musaf that was offered on the first day is offered for the next 6 days. So each day was not unique, so there's no full Hallel. The timeline, you can read yourself. I'll skip the time. I like timelines, just makes the way I remember things better. So just go to 18. The ideal wine is a red wine, because the color of the blood, either because of makas dam or because of all the blood that was spilled, Jewish blood that was spilled, that we want to remember. But the purpose of abrakosis is chayros, so the best wine possible. So if you have a superior white wine, that's perfectly okay. So just there's a whole discussion, which I'm not going to go into, about, okay, you have a superior white wine, so you want that, but red is better. I'll pour a little red wine into the white, so it'll look like a rosé. It'll have a reddish look to it. Is that okay? So that is a machlokas, whether you're allowed to do that. Well, Shlomo Zalman said, because it appears to be like tzoveya. You're not a color on that. But the Mishnah Berurah and Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky paskins now that ain't tzoveya be'ochlin. There's not a problem. You could do that if you want. There's a whole discussion of whether the wine can be mevushal. Now, all our wines are mevushal, but you can get non-mevushal wine. This stems from the fact that the Rambam has an opinion that you're not supposed to use mevushal wine for kiddush. Why not? Because on the mizbeach, only non-mevushal wine was allowed. So the Rambam holds that only the wine that was poured on the mizbeach could go for kiddush. So the Rambam would not use mevushal wine anytime, whether it's kiddush or abrakosos. The majority of the poskim, including the Shulchan Aruch, says that yayin mevushal is okay, so don't worry about it. You can do yayin mevushal. What about pasteurized wine? I mean, all our wine are pasteurized, so that's okay, because pasteurized, like flash heating it to a very high, like for a second or so, and that's fine. Doesn't change the taste at all, so that's okay. And the last thing is just, this comes up every Pesach, especially as people get older, but even younger people. What if you don't like wine? If you don't like wine, drink it anyway. You're supposed to drink wine. Wine is better for chayris. You'll never hear anybody say, "Oh, it's my birthday or it's an anniversary. Let's make a toast. Bring out the grape juice." Now, come on, nobody says that, right? Wine is celebratory. That's freedom. So that's why wine is important for the mitzvah of chayros. The only real question is, what if it makes you sick, right? So again, the poskim discuss, if you get a slight headache from it or whatever it is, then probably drink it anyway. But I mean, if it makes you major sick, a real headache, brings on a migraine, or really makes you vomit, or gives you reflux or what, or gout, okay. So then you never do anything that makes you really sick. So then use grape juice. We pass that grape juice is okay, but just understand that grape juice is really kind of b'diavad. Rav Moshe suggested that for those people who can't really drink wine, then put a little wine in your grape juice. Okay. Now, one thing that I think is very important to say, and I'll finish with this, is you don't have to use a big becher. Right? Because you're supposed to, lechatchila, you should drink the whole cup. Lechatchila. Your yotze, if you drink 51%, the majority of the cup, right? Some people have, it's Pesach. We have the best possible thing, right? Usually big is good, is better, right? So I use a 10-ounce cup. I'm going to be a real drinker, 10-ounce cup. Well, then you have to, you should drink 10 ounces, right? Right, by the second cup, you may be out, right? But, okay, but you're yotze if you drink 51%. Why, and so if wine is somewhat problematic for you, have a 4-ounce cup. Or if you really want to be a chazonish, have a 5-ounce cup. Have a 4-ounce cup, and you'll drink 51% of that. That's okay. So that's much less wine, right? That's much better than somebody having an 8-ounce cup and drinking 3 ounces. That's no good, right? Because you have to have at least 51%, right? So what you should do is have a 4-ounce cup, put in 3 ounces of grape juice and 1 ounce of wine, just so you can taste a little bit of a difference. That's what Rav Moshe suggested. If you do 100% grape juice, you're yotze. Okay, the poskim say you're yotze. There's a stand. It's not if there's a medical reason, whether it's gout or whether it's migraine headaches or whether it's reflux or whatever it is, don't drink the wine, right? I mean, you could also get wine that's 5% alcohol, right? And the problem with grape juice is that it's no alcohol, so it's not really famous. Okay, we'll stop here. Sorry for going over time. Remember, it's not Rosh Chodesh.
Like we mentioned, it's. I'll give you the six. Yeah, I was gonna make it.
Good to see you.
But I'll make it. You are.
I'll send you this, I'll give you the signal. All right, so I want to make this announcement again. Lunch and Learn today is sponsored by Michael Epstein, in loving memory of his father, Joseph Epstein, Joseph Leib, and Eliezer, on the occasion of his yahrzeit, which took place on the Shema should have in Aliyah.
Amen.
You do not have a name. You don't have a name. No, okay, no, okay.
No, Elokeinu.
Good Shabbos.
Good.
All the best.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Good Shabbos, guys.
Thank you.
Good Shabbos, my friend.
See you.
See you. To see you too.